on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Hello there, and welcome to another week here on the Misty Winston Show on TNT Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have another amazing week lined up for you. Just to give you a rundown of the week so you know the amazingness that we have lined up. Tonight we have my dear friend, musician, activist, and host of the INN show, American Tradition, Jett. Tomorrow we have a local, I'm really excited for tomorrow. We have a local organizer from East Palestine coming on to discuss their efforts in getting some independent testing and data collection done. You guys know that's been a really important story to me, so I'm super pumped about that. Wednesday, we have Sarah Higdon coming back to the show. She was just on a couple of weeks ago. We're going to continue that conversation. Thursday, we have Courtney Conover coming on. She is a former member of the American Green Party, and she is going to discuss the vast corruption that is happening within the Green Party here in the States. And then on Friday, we have David D'Amato coming back to the show. He's been on the show before, one of my favorite people to talk to, so I'm really looking forward to that. So definitely mark your calendar. Another amazing week lined up. Don't miss a second of it. And also, obviously, thanks to the ridiculousness of daylight savings time, I'm on at 11 p.m. Eastern instead of 10 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you make that adjustment in your schedule as well. It's going to be hard for me to make that adjustment. I hate daylight savings time. It's so dumb. So stupid. Okay. Before we bring our guest in, I want to talk about Anthony Albanese. Shall we? Shall we do that? I would like to do that. Old Tony is here in the States today, kissing the ring of empire. Thanks, buddy. Anthony Albanese, Joe Biden, and Rishi Sunak from the UK met today to announce the AUKUS agreement. What are the odds that they discuss their mutual torture victim, Julian Assange? What do you think? I'm going to say slim to none. So in a tweet put out by some poor intern on Biden's Twitter account today, he said, or whatever, the intern said, quote, "Together we will advance peace and security in the Indo-Pacific for years to come," end quote. And then I laughed and laughed. The United States doesn't do peace. That's ridiculous. And that was exposed by Julian Assange. Not that it needed to be exposed by Julian Assange. Anybody that is paying attention at all knows that the United States doesn't do peace. And as my good friend and fellow TNT presenter and courageous whistleblower David McBride said recently, quote, "All the blah, blah, blah from Albanese or Biden can't change the fact. They did the war crimes. Assange and I told the truth. It can never be a crime to report a crime," end quote. And yes, he is absolutely right. It should not be a crime to report a crime. And yet here we are. I know that we have a lot of listeners, obviously, in the US, the UK, and Australia. And the time to amp up the pressure on our governments is now. Frankly, it's long overdue. But let's not let it continue to go on while we sit in silence. Julian Assange is being tortured to death for telling the truth. That's it, period. It really is that simple. He exposed the truth about war crimes and corruption. He embarrassed a lot of really powerful people and made them angry. And for doing that, he is being tortured to death. And let's point out one more time, as I always do, that WikiLeaks has a 100% record of accuracy. They have never gotten it wrong. They never had to retract a single word that they've ever published. So it is, that's a vital and really important service to humanity. So we need to, we need to fight for our truth tellers in real time. I mean, instead of waiting 10, 20, 30 years to then start lionizing them and calling them heroes and all of that, let's do it in real time and not let this guy be tortured to death, because that's what's happening. He is going to die in Belmarsh. That's what's going to happen. And he has 2 young sons who are waiting at home for him, and we need to get him home to them. On the Assange front, and I apologize for my voice. I'm trying to fake it, but I'm a little sick. On the Assange front, don't forget that John and Gabriel Shipton are also touring the United States right now with their film Ithaca, which is a documentary film. It was co-produced by Gabriel, which is Julian's brother, and it features John, which is his father, and it just gives a behind-the-scenes look at their fight to free Julian. So, and it's a really powerful, really moving film, and it really returns Assange's humanity. I think that's something that gets lost very often in this whole conversation. Him as a person, like as a human, as a dude, that gets lost. And it's very much, as is rightfully so. It becomes a conversation about press freedom and free speech and war crimes and all of that stuff, that is the right conversation. But we also forget that there is a guy, like a real guy, who is at the head of this thing and who is, somebody's brother and somebody's son and somebody's father and somebody's husband. And that gets lost a lot. So this film really does a great job at kind of returning his personhood to him. And, he's been kind of disappeared from public consciousness. So this gives like a really good behind the scenes look at what his family has to go through. So they're touring the country, the United States with that film. Excuse me. Tomorrow they will be in DC at Georgetown University. Wednesday they're going to be at the University of Maryland at 3:30, and then they're going to go back to DC on that same day on Wednesday, and they'll be at the Alamo Draft House on Bryant Street at 7. On March 17th, they're going to be in Manhattan. March 18th in Huntington, New York. March 19th in Bronxville, New York, and then back to Manhattan on March 20th. You can find a full list of dates and get tickets at AssangeDefense.org/Ithaca. So please check that out. If there's a viewing near you, please try to show up. They always do a Q&A afterwards too, which is nice. You get to, ask and get like it's like a very intimate environment where it's usually John and Gabriel. John was recently in Australia. I think he's coming back though. And then usually there will be like a guest as well. And it's very intimate. You just get to ask questions and they go through all of the ridiculousness that they've had to deal with. So definitely check that out. And then also don't forget, if you have an upcoming community event, rally, march, festival, or fundraiser that could do with some free publicity, TNT Radio wants to promote it for you. Simply visit the What's On Events calendar on the TNT Radio website and submit your event details, and we will get the word out on TNT Radio.
Real talk when you need it most.
It's the topics that matter to me.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
All right. I'm very excited. My friend Jett is here. I'm very excited about it. He is he's probably my favorite musician ever of all time. He is a singer, a songwriter, a poet. He also hosts the show on INN Indie News Network called American Tradition, which is on every other Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find it on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. He also has a Bandcamp, which you should definitely check out. It's jessejett.bandcamp.com. All of his music is available for free. But then also, of course, if you are so inclined, you can also throw him a $5 or more if you feel like you should do that, and you should. His music is incredible. He has a ridiculous amount of songs out. He's like a machine, really. Like, it's really kind of ridiculous. So Jesse, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, hi, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I know. You were faking it, right? So I had to ask.
Yeah.
I should have said, how are you holding up? But
yes. Yeah. We're going to get through the hour. It's going to be fine, guys. I have the flu. Yeah. I was not going to mention it. I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I'm not even going to say anything. And then I realized I sound really terrible. So, I have the flu. We're going to get through it though. It's okay. The show must go on. So yeah, Jesse's a longtime friend of mine. He was on my show previously when I had a show on TNT a while back last year. But he is just a phenomenal musician. He does a lot of spoken word, and just really cool stuff. So, I mean, do you just want to like tell everybody, just for those who might not be familiar with you from like past shows or whatever, like how you got into doing, music and how you got into doing, because you've always been a musician, but then like the COVID thing really kind of sparked the political side.
Yeah, it was really lockdown. It was kind of staring down this uncertainty. The pandemic hitting, I was unemployed. I got laid off. I knew I was going to go back to my job. I had no idea when. And so I was just like, well, what better time than now to A, do some home recording, and B, talk about whatever I want to talk about and, what's going on. And putting a few songs out on Twitter, trying to find, political spheres to share it in was so rewarding. And I couldn't have imagined the feedback I would get. And that just propelled more and more. And next thing you know, I was writing to keep up with, the discourse and goings on. And here I am in 3 years. This record I'm about to put out next week will be the 11th political album I've put out.
Good God.
Since that. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
That's so crazy. Like when I say he's a machine, I'm not joking. I'm not joking when I say he's a machine. Yep. Like there were times where he would text me and be like, "Hey, I have this idea for a song. Do you want to do a This was before I was on TNT. So I had like a little show called Bitch with Comrade Misty on YouTube. He would text me and be like, "Hey, I have an idea for a song. Do you want to do a show later?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely. What time?" He'd be like, "I don't know. We'll say 7. We'll just say 7. This is at like maybe 3 p.m. And by the time 7 rolls around, he's got like 5 songs, 2 spoken word pieces. I'm like, what is happening? He's crazy. Yep. Like, It's intense. It's like a waterfall. It just comes out of you.
Right? Exactly.
So, yeah. It's good stuff, though. So, it is good stuff. He has a great song. Everybody should go check out his Bandcamp, as I mentioned, but he has a great song about Julian Assange. And it is really powerful. And it's I don't know, like all of your stuff is really powerful. It's hard for me to even like pick out different songs. Like people always be like, "What's your favorite Jesse Jett song?" And I'm like, "Oh my God! Well, I mean, today it's this song, but it might be something different tomorrow." I mean,
that's awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I know you're going to do some stuff tonight for us too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do your, like, do you want to set it up?
Cool.
Whatever the song you're going to do?
I'd love to. Yeah. So this song is from the last album I put out, which was an EP on Christmas Eve, actually, that was inspired by the press secretary's quote when she was asked about, the new guidelines for domestic extremism. And she said, when you're not with where the majority of Americans are, then that's extreme. That's an extreme way of thinking. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, well, there's my album title. So the album is called Everyone Who Disagrees With You Is an Extremist. And this song, I wanted to, with the whole album, really have it be a little bit more listenable and approachable than some of my other songs might be, and try to get the message down with something that was, dare I say, a little danceable. And so I put some kind of vocalizations that I normally wouldn't put in my music, just to make this, a bit more fun to sit through. And in no small part, thanks to Kit and Hardlands Media playing the heck out of it. It's now my top song on Spotify, which is pretty awesome. So nice. It made me really happy that this is getting some love. This is called Depop Culture.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep through days and still think you're right here away. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, you say I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, you were safe. Oh, you were safe. Fresh off the mask, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat, a couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. They just breathe in the steam and the smoke. They got pink salt lab and their candles are low. God, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. Now he got a life of his own, it's a sight to behold. It's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. You know the cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. It's worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. And it's ripe for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision, a natural vision of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who'll listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide? They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your texts, after they raid your apartment and confiscate all of its contents, conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically, first they will come for the communists. So why in the hell would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and it's only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with this. Off with this. Guess this isn't such an awful place. That's what you want me to say. You prove it's possible to sleep for days and still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, you say
amazing. Oh, so good. I get goosebumps. Okay, we have to take a quick break. Everybody hang tight. We're going to be back with more from Jesse Jett right after this here on TNT Radio.
TNT Radio's Jeremy Nell and Germ Warfare.
Patrick, have you noticed a trend with these propaganda wars? The war on terror, the war on viruses, the war on CO2. These are all invisible bogeymen.
Yeah, they're all invisible bogeymen. And even the ones that are visible, they're completely mischaracterized, like the Russian bogeyman. You hit on the war on terror, and that's also so apt right now, because the war on terror was a redefining, paradigm-shifting moment in terms of the world order, and always tilting towards the U.S. and the Western powers, giving them a little more power. The pandemic is another perfect example of that. And so you have from 9/11, the war on terror, we still have all the security ornaments. We still have the body scanners. We still have all the paranoia. The idea that you got to take your liquid out of your bag and put it in a little plastic bag, and it can only be 100 mils because some scientist at Reading University said theoretically it's possible to make a liquid bomb from a suntan lotion and an Avion bottle. Okay, so now, so we're still stuck with all this BS, even though the specter of so-called Islamic radical terror, whatever, is so far in the rearview mirror right now.
Jeremy Nell on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Wokeness is infiltrating churches, and people don't really know what's hitting them.
Critical race theory assumes that racism is everywhere, it is in everything. These ideologies have crept into the church.
I have grown up with this invisible kind of bag of privilege.
And I know as a white pastor, I have blind spots. Reparations fits into the scope of the gospel.
You're swimming in racism. The social justice warriors say, if you're white, you're a racist. And if you say that you're not a racist, then you have to be a white supremacist.
I see within evangelicalism today an attack on the very gospel itself.
Social justice doesn't have to do with justice, it has to do with Marxism.
Wokeness is now the dominant academic paradigm on many university and college campuses.
Many of our Christian universities have fallen prey
I went to an all-black school, raised in a black context. Everything was oppression. White people are racist, cops can't be trusted, and this world is not for us, it's against us. We felt like the government owed us. I have a family, I have children, and I don't have a job. It was at the darkest point in my life.
Because I was white, would we have to divorce and separate due to my skin color?
Christianity enables people to find forgiveness and redemption. However, Marxism is completely vindictive.
There is no redeemer and there is no redemption in the religion of anti-racism.
I believe that the evangelical church today is going to have to make a decision. Are we going to submit to the culture, or are we going to remain true to the faith and take the consequences?
How the left is stealing your church. The invasion of the gospel of woke at salemnow.com.
Government has taken our rights and will never give them back unless we make them. The voice of freedom is TNT Radio.
All right. This is TNT Radio. You are listening to The Misty Winston Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm joined by Jett, who's a good friend of mine, an amazing musician and artist and host of the show American Tradition on Indie News Network, which you can find on YouTube and Rockfin and Rumble. And also, another heads up, I forgot to mention this at the top. I'm really terrible at this. You can find, I do a little write-up, or I don't, Indy does, because he's amazing. There's a little write-up on my Substack of each guest for every day. So you can go to mistywinston.substack.com. And right there, you can find all of Jesse's links to his shows and his Bandcamp and all of that good stuff. So definitely check that out. And you can find a different write-up for each guest every day of the week. So that's a good place for everybody to go and support the people that you hear on the show. Okay, so Jesse just performed Depop Culture for us, which I love. And you do this in every song. You're so good at like calling out so much in such short amount of time, like calling out the opulence of politicians and how they're all just like these cancer, like, you know, they're terrible. But they're terrible. My favorite part of it though is when you talk about let's see. You've got nothing to hide.
I knew that was. I was about to guess that. I knew that was the part you were going to say.
Of course, because it's about surveillance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't like surveillance. I don't like it at all. And that's.
Yeah.
But that's. I mean, it's so. Especially right now, Jesse. It's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's bad.
Oh yeah.
We're in a bad time. I mean, the censorship is out of control. The surveillance is out of control and getting worse, and it's only going to continue to get worse. Yep. And it's scary, right? Like it's terrifying.
And you know, that's such a knee jerk for people is to just say, well, I mean, if you don't have anything to hide, you don't have anything to worry about, which is fine until you've relinquished every bit of your privacy. And then it's like, even if you ever wanted to hide something, you're in tough shit. I mean, it's impossible. Right. You know, it's just not going to happen. Like, yeah.
Well, even if you don't have something to hide, the government shouldn't be able to listen in on my conversations from my TV.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who cares if you have something to hide or not? That's not okay. That's a gross invasion of privacy. And it's happening every single day. And we know what's happening, but nobody seems to care, Jesse. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's so frustrating. I don't even know what to say to these people anymore, honestly, because I feel like we know all of these things are happening and it's common knowledge, but nobody seems to want to actually do anything about it. And I don't know what that is. Is it apathy? Is it just complacency? I don't know what it is, but it is really frustrating to deal with. I don't know. And I don't know how to get through
and
to people.
So many of those people, even if they are saying now that they were wrong, they're the last people that are going to say anything. They're just going to keep their mouths shut and keep their heads down and try not to get in the, just go into hiding right away. You'll never hear from them again.
Yeah. Yes, that is so true. Like the culture of not being able to admit when you were wrong. Like it's so bad. It is like so many people I think know that they were wrong on COVID, but they're never going to say it because, which, I mean, I understand that to a point because I think a lot of people went like hardcore on COVID and I'm sure they probably feel dumb. And
that's,
it's
again,
okay.
it was made into such a team sport thing. It was like, if you were one side or the other, you had to be you one of those people locked in some kind of biodome safely away from everybody else. Like there was no middle ground. So it is really refreshing to see that. I've only seen a couple, but I have seen a couple people on Twitter that were like, hey, I had it really wrong. I said some really awful stuff to people, and I just want you all to know that I'm eating my words now, and that I still have a lot of respect for someone that's willing to do that, because it's not pretty, but it's human. That's, I mean, honestly, there are songs on my first album, On the Virus. There are songs, a few, where I talk about, my opinion at the time of masking, and now that if there were any moments I'd want to go back and tweak, those would be it. But it also, I think, is important to be honest about my evolution of thought, because I wasn't the only one. Yeah, because
you were kind of one of those people. I mean, you weren't hardcore, but you were. In the beginning, I was just like, I couldn't understand in the first few weeks the people that were making a big deal about, like, I mean, if it's just for a few weeks, like, we can wear a mask when we go to the store. That's really, And then once I start realizing that that's all you have to give. As soon as you give that, then it's like, okay, as long as we say something's up, then you will acquiesce. And then that's just a precursor to bigger things.
As soon as it changes, it's like, well, wait, this isn't adding up. And I do think it was important that, like I said, I wasn't the only one that did that. So you can listen through within the span of a couple years and hear my opinion change and mature on COVID, on Bernie Sanders, on a whole bunch of things. And again, I wasn't the only one.
Okay. Let's talk about that too. Let's talk about, we have to take a quick break to get some headlines. But let's talk about that, because like, I appreciate the fact that you allowed yourself to grow, because so many people didn't do that. Nick Cruz from RBN also did the same thing. He allowed himself to grow. But let's talk about that. Let's take a quick break for headlines. We're going to be right back right here on TNT Radio.
News doesn't stop breaking, and we don't take a break from covering it.
TNT Radio News.
Matt Boyland here with a look at your TNT headlines. US President Joe Biden has tried convincing Americans the country's banking system is safe following the historic collapse of two of the nation's banks over the weekend. Russia's agreed to extend the UN brokered deal to export Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea, but only for an additional 60 days. And Taiwan's warned China is preparing to impose a total blockade across the Taiwan Strait to prevent foreign troops from gaining access to the self-governed island.
Globalist agendas, democratic rights at risk, corruption, propaganda. It never stops. Listen to TNT Radio anywhere you go. Ask Alexa or Google to play TNT Radio, or download the TNT Radio app for free from the App Store or Google Play. Today's News Talk. This is TNT Radio.
This is TNT Radio, and we are joined by Jett, and we were just talking a bit right there before the headlines about, listen, I know how propaganda works. I understand. It is very powerful. It is all, like, it's really, they use fear. Fear is a very, very powerful manipulator. So I understand how that works, and I wish more people could recognize that even if you fall for that, like, it is okay. It is better to admit it out loud that, hey, I fell for this thing, than to sit in silence and not acknowledge that. Do you know what I'm saying? And like you mentioned, Bernie Sanders, I was kind of, I was cautiously supportive of him in 2016. As I told everybody at the time, I was like, look, I think this is maybe the last chance that we have to push this thing back in the other direction before we fall off the cliff. And so I supported him, knowing who he was, knowing, that he was not the guy he was pretending to be, that he was not some revolutionary, that he was not really anti-war and all of the things that he was pretending to be. But I thought that this might be the one chance that we had to kind of at least stall the fall of empire, right? At least a little bit, so that we could try to get some power back. But it was really frustrating to me to watch how many people let this guy take millions of dollars from them that they did not have to give, and then sell them out so fast to the human embodiment of everything that he claimed to stand against. And so many people You know what I'm saying? And so many people after 2016, I was done and I was loudly anti-Bernie. And so many people hated me for it and still do, a lot of them. But a lot of, like, I've had more people come to me over the past couple of years and be like, hey, I blocked you a few years ago because I thought you were too hard on Bernie. I'm really sorry. You were right. Like, I've had a lot of that over the years. COVID, not so much yet. I think we'll see more of that as we go. But like like, what do you think that is though? Because like you said, you were able to admit you were wrong. Nick Cruz was able to admit he was wrong. We've had a couple of people admit they were wrong on COVID, but the vast majority of people are not capable of not recognizing, but admitting it. Is it just pride, or do you think they feel dumb? Or because listen, it's fine. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
Especially again, because a lot of those people, you know, and social media and Twitter especially really exacerbates it. But it's not just you're wrong. It's like you're wrong and we're all going to rake you over the coals for being wrong. So there's an extra like hesitancy, I think. And if someone has been really loudly the other fence side, then all of a sudden they feel like they're going to, you know, come out and say, hey, I was wrong. That's all going to get thrown back in their face. And again, in some cases, it rightly should, depending on what you said and how hard you were on people, you know, for their choices they made. Yeah. But again, everyone's going through that. You can't expect people to learn any differently and evolve themselves if you're not willing to fess up and say, like, again, we all didn't just, you know, come out of the womb with perfectly formed politics and opinions. Like I voted for Obama twice, you know, and I've mentioned that in a couple songs. That's, you know, something I have to carry on my shoulders for my whole life.
I can tell you now, I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and I legitimately hate myself for it. Every time I think about it, I cringe. It makes me angry at myself. My excuse is, this is my story and I'm sticking to it. I had just given birth to my first baby that year. And so my hormones were, you know, out of control and I bought into the stupid hope and change stuff. And I hate myself for it because I'm smarter than that. But that's my excuse. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's why. But like by February of 2009, I knew who that guy was. I was like, okay, now I know who you are.
It didn't take long.
No. Once the appointments started coming in, no.
I'm a sucker for a good speech, you know, and I watched his acceptance speech and I just like had tears and I was like, oh man, this is it. We're finally, you know, someone's going to finally come and like take care of people that need to be taken care of. And
what a turd he turned out to be, right? Oh, what the worst. Yeah. He's one of the worst, man, because he is so good. Honestly, like he's very convincing. He's so charming and charismatic, and he's like he is a good salesman.
There are so many people that wholeheartly believe the worst thing he ever did was wear a tan suit. That was it. That was
dude. He went on national TV. He went on national TV and said, we tortured some folks and nobody cared. He was just like,
drink a little Flint water.
What?
Get over it.
What the heck is going on? Crazy, right? That's great. But seriously though, I used to be wrong on gun control. So post Sandy Hook, my kids were the same age as the kids that were killed at Sandy Hook, and it devastated me. I mean, especially because there was one child who was killed who was autistic and was killed being shielded by his aide. My child is autistic. Like, I was an emotional disaster during that time. Yeah. It was really hard for me to watch that stuff. And so I reacted emotionally and I went hardcore anti-gun. I never really had much of an opinion. It's not really a topic that I'd ever put a whole lot of thought into, but that like sent me over the edge. And I admit it now. I was 100% wrong. I reacted emotionally. I didn't think with logic, and I was wrong. And I admit it now. And it took me a few years. But I would just remained open. You know what I'm saying? And I listened to people who had differing opinions, and I changed my mind, and I realized that I had done the wrong thing and reacted with emotions, and that's okay. It's okay it's okay to be wrong. In fact, it's good to be wrong and to learn and to grow. And it's so weird to me that people, but I do think you're right though. The social media thing of like, if you admit that you're wrong, I think if you do it the right way, and I also think that you're right too. It just depends on how wrong you were. Like, we know somebody who said that all of the unvaccinated should just be shot. That's hard to come back from.
For sure. And like I said, depending on the extent of what you said, there's a certain amount of like humbling yourself, and prostrating yourself before the internet that you have to do.
Yes.
Hey, Stro.
I just think I like when people admit that they're wrong. I do. I admire that. Yep. I think it takes courage. I think it takes
incredibly endearing.
Yes. And I think most people do. I mean, are you going to get some crap from some dumb trolls? Yes. But you're going to get crap from dumb trolls anyway. That's just the nature of the internet. So,
and again, I do,
try my internet.
There are a couple, right? There are a couple songs I've tried to say, that I can only blame people so much because at the end of the day, you fell victim to the most intense, brutal propaganda machine on the planet.
Yes.
I did too. How can you not? We're fed. I mean, and that's one song on maybe my favorite song on the last album is called Blocking the Light. And it was about, it's about, my son is 6. And he's starting to ask specific questions about how services function, government and the police and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to overwhelm him with the truth too soon.
Yeah.
I also don't want to lie to him enough that it builds up something that I have to completely tear down later on and say, hey, I completely misled you on all this stuff. This was all wrong.
It's hard.
And then again, approaching that question of like, how much better off am I for what I know? Really? What good is it doing me right now in the moment? Because there are some days where, it's easier to kind of bear that knowledge than others.
I tell my husband all the time, the worst thing about knowing is that you can never unknow. And there are times that I desperately wish that I could go back to not knowing the things that I know, because it's hard. Like I guess I like
for one day and watch a movie,
It would be nice. It would be nice to just be able to like not have to think about all of the disgusting, horrible, terrifying things that I know and understand about the world. And it's hard. Like it's hard as a parent to find that balance of like, how much do you tell them, and you're going to scar them for life, or like it's really difficult. It's a really difficult thing. Okay, we have to take another quick break, but hang tight. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes with more from Jesse Jett here on TNT Radio.
De-weaponizing weather with reality and perspective.
So, look what we've got from Reuters here. Marine heat waves are sweeping the seafloor around North America. They're also doing it in the Pacific, too. But the fact of the matter is, even Reuters is recognizing what I have been saying. A team of scientists with the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have conducted the first assessment, the first one of marine heat waves along the North American continental shelves. They found that these bottom heat waves range from 0.5 Celsius to 3 degrees Celsius warmer than normal temperatures and could last more than 6 months. Now, where do you think that heat is going to go? It's going to be spread out throughout the ocean, and this is just around North America. This is not even analyzing what's going on in the Pacific Ring of Fire. But this is exactly what I've been talking about. And let's see, what else did they say here? We simply don't have a ton of instruments at the bottom of the ocean. Well, isn't that special? So what do? You blame CO2, when in reality it's likely a natural occurrence. This is TNT climate and weather watchdog meteorologist Joe Bastardi asking you to enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Challenging the consensus and debunking the narrative. This is Viewpoint.
A social credit system was introduced in China in 2014. China's social credit system is a nationwide government program for regulation of citizens' behavior based on a point system. Under this system, citizens are assessed using data collected from court documents, government or corporate records, and even from neighbors and observers. Citizens with higher scores are eligible for bank loans, free medical checkups, and other services in demand. Points are deducted for traffic violations, defaulting on loan payments, smoking in non-smoking zones, buying or playing too many video games, posting false news stories online, and other transgressions deemed appropriate by authorities. Citizens with bad social credit scores can be denied essential services, and blacklists are available for employers, educational institutions, and credit providers to reference. When introduced by China's State Council, it was announced the system would favor the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven, while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step.
The conversation continues.
When these parents come into that school board meeting in a huge group, they will back down.
On today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
You are listening to the Misty Winston Show right here on TNT Radio. I'm joined by Jett. Just before the break, we were talking a little bit about how difficult it is as a parent to find the balance of how much to explain to your kids. It's really hard. I live in Ohio, as most of you know, and the East Palestine situation has been going on now for over a month. My kids are 12 and 15, and it is really hard for me because they're asking questions. I mean, obviously, because they're a little bit older, they're asking questions too. And it's really hard. Like, my youngest wanted to know what happened. So I told her, and then she was like, well, but why did that happen? So I was like, well, you know what I mean? How much do you tell? Like, this is a really corrupt company that has bought off politicians to rig the system in their favor, and they've deregulated themselves so they don't have to do safety inspections. And like, how much do you go into? And then she wanted to know, well, are they going to be held accountable? And I'm like, no. Why not? That's a good question. You know what I mean? Like, it's so difficult as a parent to navigate that. And it's so frustrating because there's no good answer. And it's all you're going to do is just make them, I don't know, angry and fearful. And so, yeah, that's really hard. That's a really hard thing to navigate as a parent. I don't think it's talked about enough. Yeah. And I know you have a piece on East Palestine that you're going to do for us tonight. And that's,
I do.
You know, I'm pumped. I'm so glad that you did something on East Palestine. It's not getting talked about enough. It makes me angry. I realize that I'm a bit biased just because it's my neck of the woods. But I think everybody should care about it because it's not just Ohio that's going to be impacted by this. It's literally everybody. This is like prime farmland, the water systems. I mean, listen, if this gets into the Ohio River, which it's suspected that it is, which that goes into the Mississippi. So that's a lot of people that are going to be impacted. And furthermore, it's not just East Palestine. These kinds of derailments are going to become more frequent, and there's never any accountability. And we need to start reining in these rail companies. It makes me angry that they're allowed to get away with this. Oh.
And you know, I wrote the one piece a couple days after it happened, and I've been working on another spoken word album. And as it kind of took shape, everything else I was writing was either explicitly about that or about something else going on, but then found a way to weave its way back to that. Because again, it's one of those things that if we let it go and let it get lost among all the other stuff, and there's just nothing else that, nothing that won't slip through. So as this kind of took shape, it's really become it's only 6 pieces, but it's mostly about the East Palestine derailment. It's called "And Then the Sky Slammed Shut," which is a title that I've wanted to use for a long time, and this was really the perfect perfect setting for it. So I actually recorded 2 of the pieces tonight just before we started this. So it'll be coming out on the spring equinox on the 20th.
Good.
First day of spring.
No, that's good. It's so good though. I'm so glad that you're doing like a whole like album on it, because you're right. What you just said is so, and I keep saying that on this show, and I'm done apologizing for it, because I have been kind of hyper fixated on the East Palestine thing. I talk about it on a really regular basis. I'm not sorry. It needs to be talked about, and it needs to be talked about regularly and often and loudly, because these people, I don't think people who don't live in the area, I don't think you understand, their lives are ruined. Like ruined. It's over for them. Like their property values have been completely shattered. They can't, where are they supposed to go? They can't go anywhere. They can't sell their houses. Their kids are going to have to grow up in this environment. Like they're facing a lifetime of medical issues. It's bad. And I think we're already starting to see it slip from the headlines. Thankfully, Norfolk Southern is so incompetent. They keep wrecking their trains. So every once in a while, like another derailment happens. So we have to talk about it again. So thank you, Norfolk Southern, for being so trash that you keep letting us bring it back up. But I mean, geez Louise, man, it's so ridiculous. But yes,
really
I'm
is.
glad that you're making a whole album of it. So, okay, do you want to set the piece up that you're going to do for us at all, or do you think you just kind of did? I guess.
I mean, I feel like we just did. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one that kind of started it. This was the piece I wrote a couple days after the fact. This is called Supersight, Children of the Fuselage. 100,000 pounds of vinyl chloride burned into the air and in the water with your fluoride. Today we'll demonstrate the role that profit plays in cost-benefit analysis to find the worth of your lives. Mind you, we'll be grading on a curve that traces dead fish on the shoreline. Today the town of East Palestine will know the skies of wartime, wear the shoes of Palestine, and know the smell of war crimes. Their pets and livestock will be corpses for the war shrine. This is how you sanction all your farmland in the Fourth Reich. I'm honestly surprised that Pete addressed it in a fortnight. Praised the first responders, but ignored the looming morgue line. Like focus on the cavalry, ignore that every horse died. Never mind, there's not a single cricket, bird, or horsefly, just triclops in the triage tent who expedite the foride. Norfolk taking pages out the Northwoods, north side. Add a dash of NORAD, plant a row of soil mines. Give them lots of black skies and water bright with oil shine, and you can propagate the kind of crop that Gates will normalize. Save your time. Give up ever going back to normal life. Norfolk cut its cost, and now this nation pays the morbid price. Norfolk weighed the loss as purely human, so they rolled the dice, knowing Biden had their backs when workers tried to unionize, knowing all their lobbyists assured they won't be scrutinized, and knowing that the tiny little fine they might be hit with is a part of doing business when your business is to euthanize. To salt the earth, liquidate the brutalized, drench the plains in acid rain, and blame it all on rural minds. Tell them that's just what they get for voting red, and old Team Blue will fall in step and shake their heads and disconnect from humankind. They're never looking up. Their fingers point to you and I. Thanks to years of being trained to frame the little guy. They've seen the film enough to tell you where the blame should lie. The poorest family's EBT card was the mastermind. Those little houses won't concern the liberal passerby. They had their dose of NPR. The passive voice will cast aside your raspy breath and swollen eyes, your burning cough that won't subside, your cat that didn't last the night, that pall of death, that blackened sky, the harvest faced in 10 years' time that reaps the waste of wealthy crimes, a million-gallon deep decline through super sites and party lines, through hurried graves and leaded pipes, past poisoned slaves and slaughtered tribes, past forgotten treaties that we authored, then we compromised, past our moral fabric, ever brittle, gray, and fossilized, and past this mass of plastic trash that's just this side of ossified. And if you find one root that thrives, a living proof of fruitful vines, just hold it close. Take in the sight. Don't plant some host for parasites who in the name of corporate gains see all that murder justified. We're such a waste of insect paste and so much cheaper crucified. We're children of the fuselage, ghosts of all the food deprived, echoes of a working class whose Kristallnacht was supersized. Out in Ohio, birds are drowning where they stand, and their eyes reflect a world event that devastates the land. And it's a tale of regulations disemboweled by profit's hand, and their viscera that soaks like so much chloride in the sand.
Oh, so good, Jesse. So good. So good. And it honestly, like that just fires me up. It just makes me angry. It just makes me angry all over again listening to you. And especially like when you talked about liberals saying that's what you get for voting red.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can't think of anything more disgusting than telling people that they deserve to be poisoned because they have different politics than you. I mean, what is wrong with you? Seriously.
Again, that just shows how deep the divide is, how strong our propaganda is, that people literally, like I said, is a disconnect from their humanity. And I only saw like one person do it at the time I wrote that. And since I've seen probably a dozen at least. And it's just, from randos on Twitter to, people on The View. I mean, it's such a... Again, that's what you have to do, I guess, when you're that deep in it already, the only way you can let this pass without it just driving you nuts is to say, well, they had it coming. They made a bad choice. That's what, I'm making a good choice. That's not going to happen to me. That's the desperate kind of head in the sand mentality that has gotten them this far. And eventually turns into you just rocking back and forth in the shower. Like, it's a very short pipeline there.
Yeah. Yeah, because really, like, Biden's any better? Really? Like, they deserve to be poisoned because of Trump, but Biden's any better? I mean, really? You have to be a special kind of delusional to think that that's reality. That's not reality.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Biden is no better. Joe Biden is 100% bought by the train companies, period, by the rail companies.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
no question about it. There's no question.
If he wasn't,
it's absurd
he wouldn't
to think.
have appointed Pete Buttigieg as transportation secretary.
Right? Like, I mean, it's like that level of, again, I understand the propaganda is very powerful, but it is very frustrating to me to see grown adults like internalize that kind of thinking. Like, seriously, there has to be something wrong with you where you are willing to say that people deserve to be poisoned because they voted for somebody differently than you in a corrupt two-party system that really is just one party that's owned and operated by the exact same people.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, wow, that's a special level of just horrible. You're a horrible person. You need to reevaluate your life. It's terrible.
Yep.
And listen, it's no different than when Republicans say that, like a hurricane was a punishment for the gays, or you know what I mean? Like, that's just ridiculous. Shut up. Like, that's not what good people say. That's not what good people think. That's not okay. Like, you just need to calm down.
It's called a hurricane.
You're gonna make me cough. Stop it. Okay.
Sorry.
I've been trying to get through this whole show without a coughing fit, and I've been doing pretty good. You're gonna make me laugh, and then that's gonna make me cough. Okay. All right. We only have 5 more minutes left. I'm doing good. I'm getting through it. We're getting through the hour. I'm very proud of myself. I have the flu, 101 degree fever. Getting through it. We're getting through it.
Ooh la la.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. Okay. But yes. Yeah, the East Palestine thing, it makes me incredibly frustrated just seeing how many people are ignoring it, how many people, like, so many people are focused on, like, really stupid things, like just dumb drama, and they're not paying any attention at all to what's happening to the people in East Palestine. And what's even more frustrating is that they are, like I said, I'm having a local on tomorrow she's from United for East Palestine, and they are trying to organize themselves. And they have managed to get a couple of really prestigious doctors and scientists and researchers and all of that stuff to help them. They're trying, like, they have to get their own independent testing. They have to do their own data collection. Like, it's mind blowing that these people from East Palestine, which, by the way, not a wealthy neighborhood, like, they're not wealthy. This is like a very poor, tiny Ohio town. And they're having to do it themselves. Like, they have to stand up for themselves and do this themselves. And it's so sad to me that people are just letting it go and not screaming from the mountaintops that this is not. And then Norfolk Southern has had two more train derailments since East Palestine. When are we going to turn Norfolk Southern over to the employees? When are we going to, it needs to, you've lost you're done. You forfeited your right to your company at this point. You are obviously incompetent. And you are you turn it over to the workers. You know what I mean? Do it today. It's ridiculous. Oh, it makes me so angry, Jesse. It really does. Like, that, your piece just got me all fired up now. Now I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I'm gonna
wouldn't have done if I'd known you already had a fever. I mean,
no, it's fine. I'm not gonna sleep anyways. I'm gonna be coughing all night anyways. So, I mean, I'm gonna take some Robitussin or something. Hopefully that'll help. But yeah, it honestly just makes me angry because I'm so tired of the people in this country with the least power just being stomped on. It's despicable. It really is. It makes me angry on so many levels. And that's why I refuse to let this go. Like, I don't even care anymore if it's annoying that I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to continue to have locals on the show. I'm going to have people from the rail unions on the show. We have to keep talking about this. It's because it's just going to keep happening. Yeah. You know, it's just going to keep happening. And at some point it's going to be, I mean, believe it or not, it could be a lot worse than East Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it could, like,
and that's bad enough.
The length of these cars.
Yeah.
But I mean, these cars are like over 200 cars long. If there's like a huge, I mean, they could be like completely catastrophic, and it could happen not in tiny East Palestine, not to diminish East Palestine, but what if it happens in like a major metropolitan area? Like, what the heck are you going to do then?
And you know what's mind blowing is the lack of hazmat regulation. Like in my job, if I am loading a tote of hazmat material onto a truck, there's so many hoops I have to jump through, paperwork I have to get right. And if I get it wrong and that person gets in an accident, I will get fined so hard. I will be held infinitely more accountable than Norfolk Southern will ever be for whatever happens. I will be way more on the hook.
Well, that's because you can't buy politicians, Jesse.
You know?
You just can't buy politicians, though. They've bought off the politicians.
It's true.
So that's where that is.
It's very true.
Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find your shows and stuff. We got a couple minutes here.
Bandcamp, like you said, everything is free. On Spotify as well, iTunes, any other streaming services. The next album, And Then the Sky Slammed Shut, is going to be out on the 20th. Followed soon by another collection of songs, which will be Love Notes from Gitmo.
Nice. And then also you can find Jesse every other Tuesday night on INN. It's called American Tradition. You can find that on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. Thank you for coming on. Yep. I always love hanging out with you and chatting with you and listening to your stuff. I could do that all day.
And shout out to Indy.
And I'll be
back
tomorrow. Yes, we do love Indy. And I will be back tomorrow, 11 p.m. with another show. We're going to have United for East Palestine on. We're going to talk about that with them and their organizing efforts. So definitely tune in for that. As Julian Assange says, learn, challenge, act now, and don't go anywhere. There's more coming up right after this on TNT Radio.